In the annals of history, there are names that transcend the boundaries of time. One such warrior who did not just redraw the maps of the world, but changed the very course of civilization. From the lion cub of Pella to the titan who conquered the world, what was the secret to his success? Was it merely the strength of his sword, or the precision of his strategy and intellect? You are watching Legend Origin Studio. Today, we step into that epic chapter of history where a true legend was born. Let us uncover the story of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great. The sun rose over the mist-covered marble pillars of Pella, the proud capital of Macedonia. Within the royal palace, amidst the whispers of court intrigue and the sharp scent of polished steel, lived a boy with eyes as fierce as a mountain predator's and a mind as restless as the winds of Olympus. This was young Alexander. Unlike the other princes of the era, who were content to indulge in the soft luxuries of the court, Alexander was born into a world of hard edges and high ambition. He was the lion cub of Macedonia, being raised in a kingdom forged by iron and fueled by the dream of greatness. His upbringing was a unique blend of martial discipline and intellectual fire. While his father, the formidable King Philip II, was busy transforming the Macedonian army into the most fearsome fighting force in the world, Alexander was under the tutelage of the greatest mind of his time, Aristotle. In the cool, quiet shade of the Mieza trees, the young prince did not merely memorize facts, he engaged in deep philosophical debate. Aristotle taught him the geography of the known world, the complex art of statecraft, the logic of governance, and the stirring beauty of Homeric poetry. It was during these formative years that the legend truly began to take root. Alexander slept every night with a copy of the Iliad under his pillow, given to him by his teacher, imagining himself the successor to the hero Achilles. He was not just studying history, he was preparing to become part of it. He developed a mind that saw connections others missed. He understood that the strength of a leader lay not just in the sheer force of his sword arm, but in the precision of his planning, the loyalty he commanded, and the depth of his strategic foresight. As a teenager, Alexander watched his father's campaigns with the intensity of a hawk. He studied how Philip organized the phalanx, how he utilized cavalry, and most importantly, how he turned a fragmented people into a unified national force. Every lesson learned in the court of Pella was a brick in the foundation of the man he was to become. He was a teenager who lived in the shadow of a king, yet he was already looking beyond the borders of his kingdom, mapping out a future that stretched far past the horizons of his father's map. He was not just a boy being raised to rule, he was a conqueror being forged by the gods, waiting to claim his destiny. As Alexander entered his early teenage years, the air in Pella buzzed with the arrival of Philonicus the Thessalian, a horse trader with a beast that seemed to defy the natural order. It was Bucephalus, a massive, powerful black stallion with a wild, uncontrollable spirit. The horse was a masterpiece of muscle and bone, but he was fierce. He reared and kicked at anyone who dared to approach him. King Philip's most experienced stable masters and bravest cavalry officers tried to mount the stallion, only to be thrown off in violent defiance. Frustrated, and seeing no use for such a dangerous creature, Philip ordered the horse to be led away. It was a waste of a king's gold and a hazard to his men. Alexander, standing nearby, watched the struggle with keen, analytical eyes. While others saw only a wild animal, the young prince noticed something they had missed. He realized that the horse wasn't just being difficult. He was terrified by his own shadow, which danced and flickered on the ground before him every time he tried to move. It was a failure of perception, not a failure of character in the animal. With the confidence of a leader twice his age, Alexander stepped forward and asked his father the chance to try his hand at taming the stallion. Philip was skeptical, even mocking his son, but Alexander persisted, wagering his own inheritance on the success of his attempt. The boy walked toward the massive beast. Instead of approaching with fear or force, he moved with calm, calculated grace. He grabbed the reins and gently turned the horse's head toward the sun, forcing the animal to face the light. As the shadow fell behind the horse, the animal's frantic agitation vanished, replaced by a strange, quiet focus. Alexander spoke to the horse in low, soothing tones, stroking its neck as he slowly eased himself onto its back. The stallion, sensing the calm, authoritative presence of the young prince, stood firm. When Alexander finally nudged him forward, the horse moved with a smooth, disciplined stride, acknowledging the master he had finally found. The royal court stood in stunned silence as the boy returned, riding the once untamable beast with the ease of a veteran commander. King Philip, moved to tears of pride and profound realization, looked at his son and uttered words that would echo through history. "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedonia is too small for you." This moment was far more than a feat of horsemanship. It was the public forging of a leader. Alexander had demonstrated that he possessed the rarest trait of a king, the ability to see beyond the surface, to identify the root of a problem, and to master the environment through intellect rather than raw power. The legend of the boy who tamed the storm had begun. Fate is often a cruel and unpredictable master. In 336 BC, the world of the young prince was shattered in an instant. His father, King Philip II, the man who had unified Macedonia and built the world's most disciplined army, was assassinated during a royal wedding celebration. Suddenly, at only 20 years of age, Alexander was thrust onto the throne. It was a moment of supreme vulnerability for the kingdom. The surrounding city-states and longtime enemies viewed this transition not as a succession, but as an opportunity for collapse. They were profoundly mistaken. Alexander did not react with the hesitation of a youth. He moved with the decisive speed of a tempest. While the rest of the world waited for the news of rebellion, Alexander was already marching. He did not plead for loyalty, nor did he seek to negotiate with those who sought to tear his kingdom apart. Instead, he met every challenge with overwhelming military force and a cold, strategic brilliance that shocked his adversaries into submission. He crushed the revolts in Greece, showing no mercy to those who dared to challenge the legitimacy of his crown. This period was the crucible that transformed the prince into a monarch. He understood that to maintain power, he had to be both feared and respected. By securing his borders and unifying the fractured Greek forces under his singular command, he proved that he was the rightful successor of Philip's legacy. He had successfully quelled internal dissent and asserted his absolute authority. However, Alexander was never satisfied with merely holding on to what he had inherited. With his borders secured and his army behind him, he turned his gaze toward the east, toward the vast, glittering, and terrifying Persian Empire. The crown of Macedonia was no longer just a symbol of royal status. It was the foundation for a dream that stretched far beyond the Mediterranean. He was no longer just a king of a small territory. He was the leader of the Hellenic world, and his true hunger for glory had only just begun to manifest. The world was about to learn that the boy they underestimated was in truth the architect of a new age. With Greece secure and his throne firm, Alexander launched his grand campaign against the Persian Empire in 334 BC. This was the ultimate challenge. The Persian Empire was a superpower spanning from the Mediterranean to the Indus Valley, boasting immense wealth and vast armies. Facing it seemed like suicide to many, but Alexander was not just an ambitious king. He was a military genius who had spent his life preparing for this exact moment. The first major test came at the Battle of the Granicus River. Here, Alexander's smaller Macedonian force faced a large Persian army commanded by local satraps. Realizing the Persians were poorly deployed, Alexander did not hesitate. With a daring cavalry charge, he led his elite companions directly into the heart of the Persian line. The shock was devastating. Alexander himself fought in the thick of the fray, his life saved only by the quick action of a loyal officer. The Persian command structure collapsed and their army broke. It was a victory born of audacity and precision. His greatest strategic masterpiece, however, was the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. Here, he faced the main Persian army, personally led by the great King Darius III. Alexander was vastly outnumbered, yet he possessed something Darius did not: a perfect understanding of the battlefield and the supreme confidence to execute a complex plan. As the armies clashed, Alexander observed a critical weakness in the Persian formation. He identified a narrow gap that opened in the enemy's left center flank. With absolute split-second timing, he gathered his companions and led them in a wedge formation, punching directly through the gap and heading straight for Darius himself. The maneuver was so swift and unexpected that the Persian army was thrown into chaos. Darius, fearing for his life, turned his chariot and fled the field. His massive army, seeing their king retreat, dissolved into a panicked rout. At Issus, Alexander proved that raw numbers were no match for brilliant, disciplined strategy. He did not just defeat the Persian army, he dismantled it by striking at its head. He had shown the world that he was not merely a conqueror, he was the architect of a new kind of warfare, where intelligence, speed, and tactical genius were the ultimate weapons. The legend of the boy king was fading, replaced by the chilling reality of an unstoppable military titan. With the Persian Empire crumbling, Alexander's ambition expanded beyond the boundaries of his original goals. He was no longer just a king of Macedon, he was a force of nature sweeping across the east. From the burning, sun-drenched sands of Egypt, where he was hailed as a pharaoh and founded the great city of Alexandria, to the rugged, formidable mountains of Persia, his march was relentless. He did not simply conquer lands, he sought to understand them. He famously adopted local customs, wore Persian royal attire, and encouraged his men to marry local women, creating a unique fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures. The journey eventually led him to the heart of India, a land of mystery and immense scale. At the banks of the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus, a monarch who fought with a ferocity that matched Alexander's own. Even in this grueling battle, against a king who utilized war elephants, Alexander's tactical brilliance shone through, resulting in a hard-fought victory. However, this was the turning point. His men, who had marched thousands of miles, endured swelling heat, and fought countless battles, were exhausted. They stood at the edge of the known world, and for the first time, they refused to move forward. Alexander, the man who had never accepted no as an answer, had to confront the limits of human endurance. Reluctantly, he turned his army back, but his legacy was already set in stone. He had bridged the gap between East and West, establishing cities and trade routes that would define the course of history for centuries to come. As he stood as the undisputed master of the vast territories he had claimed, he looked back at the journey that began with a teenager reading the Iliad under his pillow. He had started with a dream of becoming a hero, and he had become a titan. He was Alexander the Great, the conqueror who dared to touch the horizon, and in doing so, forever altered the tapestry of civilization. His story remains the ultimate testament to the power of human willpower, strategic genius, and an unquenchable thirst for greatness. From the books of Homer to the farthest reaches of the East, Alexander's journey was more than a series of conquests. It was the ultimate testament of the power of human will. He dared to touch the horizon, and in so doing, forever altered the tapestry of civilization. Though his empire eventually changed, the legend of the boy who tamed the storm lives on. If you enjoyed uncovering this epic history, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Legend Origins Studio for more deep dives into the legends that shaped our world. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter.